When I was 10, my father, older sister, and I went to Walmart. My sister and I like to wander alone in stores, so my father had invested in 3 walkie-talkies. I was by myself, walking through the bedding section, because I was getting a new bedspread. I was focusing on one item when I sensed someone was observing me. I turned to face the beginning of the aisle, where a large man in overalls and dirty brown hair was staring at me. I chose to walk in the opposite direction and quickly made my way to the pet section, while using the walkie-talkie to ask my father where he was. He didn't answer. I made it to the dog food and was happily next to another shopper when he walked by the aisle. Thinking he didn't see me, I let out a sigh of relief. I inquired about my father's whereabouts once more, but received no response. I felt reassured when I turned around and saw this man standing at the end of the aisle. I quickly walked away, planning to head to the customer service desk and ask them to call my father. As I walked parallel to him, he matched my steps, preventing me from reaching the front of the store. I changed directions, trying to lose him. In my 10-year-old mind, I thought running to the bathroom would be safe. I ran in and hid in a stall. I heard his footsteps as he entered and saw his shoes below the stall's door. Then I heard an angry woman's voice say, "Hey, get out of here." The woman knocked on the stall's door and asked, "Are you okay?" I opened the door, hugged her, and began crying. I told her everything, and she walked with me to the customer service desk, holding my hand. She waited with me until my father showed up. I told him what happened, and despite the lady verifying it, he didn't believe me. This incident occurred on a Friday afternoon, shortly before the holidays. I went shopping at a small local Walmart with my kids and a male friend. I absolutely loathe holiday crowds and wouldn't even have bothered to get out if I weren't in the ketchup sandwich state of needing groceries. I'm in the pharmacy section trying to choose a hair dye, while both of my children are in my pushcart. My friend is in a different section answering a work call on his cell. My son, who is in kindergarten, is beaming over my shoulder, while my toddler daughter, who speaks mostly in fragments, remarks, "Creepy." As I turn around, I notice a middle-aged man standing behind me, perhaps 20 feet away, intently staring at my daughter. She is fairly beautiful, so people are always commenting on her looks and talking to her, but this felt different. I was instantly uneasy. I left the pharmacy department and headed towards the grocery store as I needed certain items there. This friend and I have those bond bracelets that let you buzz the other person when you're thinking about them, so I gave him 3 rapid buzzes, which is our code for call me. My friend materializes at my side, which somewhat calms me. I casually mentioned the man who had appeared behind me, but because I was caught off guard, I didn't really look at him, only enough to notice his somewhat nondescript appearance and his chubby short stature. Friend looks at me and says, "I noticed him walking behind you when you were headed to the pharmacy," which does nothing for the nervous feeling in my stomach. Friend then comments that if we see Creepy again, he'll tell the guy what's up. A while later, we're walking through the refrigerator aisles, contemplating coffee creamer flavors and whatnot, when my toddler again pipes up, this time to say Santa. Turning around, I realize that Creepy has grabbed one of those Santa heads, put it on, and is once again standing behind me, this time waving at my children. Now on high alert, I make my way to the front, speed walking as best I can while carrying a large basket full of groceries and children. My friend has missed his opportunity and is too preoccupied to speak to Creepy. I'm practically running to the front. I find an empty lane and start shoving the crap I want to buy onto the conveyor. The cashier begins scanning my things, notices how shaken I look, and asks about it. I proceed to tell her about the incident with Creepy. She asks if we can see him. My friend, who is relatively tall, begins to scan the store for Creepy and says he is standing by the grocery exit. The cashier alerts a manager, but at this point, our main goal is to leave the store relatively unbothered and head home. Manager heads in the direction of the grocery exit. We head to the other exit, and Creepy meets us outside, once again attempting to make eye contact with my toddler. Male friend, who has now found his moment, puffs up to his full 6'5" height and roars, "Back the fuck off," which he does immediately. As we gaze out towards the car, the manager and 2 other employees approach the creep, and that's the last we see of him. While my friend is buckling the kids into their seats, I toss everything into the trunk and we swiftly leave. I stopped hyperventilating shortly after that, but it is now May, and this is still on my mind. In all honesty, he might have been suffering from mental illness. In the area where we were shopping, there is an outpatient hospital that treats patients of the mentally ill, substance addicted, and potentially dangerous to themselves varieties. Nonetheless, I am glad my friend reacted the way he did, and I am somewhat embarrassed at myself for not reacting in a similar fashion. Despite my reputation as an assertive mother figure, the man's sudden and unexpected approach left me unprepared and somewhat taken aback. Let's avoid encountering this holiday-motivated grocery creep again. I secured a job at Walmart at the age of 18. In a small town, there were limited opportunities for someone who had just graduated from high school. I had been working in the jewelry department for about a month, typically from mid-afternoon until the department closed at 9 p.m. I was responsible for closing the department myself, but since Walmart is open 24 hours a day, there were always other people around. One night, I'm locking the cases up and putting things away, and an overnight stalker walks by and says hi. I look up, smile, and say hi, then go about my business. This guy bears a striking resemblance to one of the Bee Gees. He has shoulder-length frizzy hair and a lively gait when he walks. Probably about 50 years old. This started to become a regular thing. On nights I closed by myself, he'd walk by and say hi, and I would say hi back. That's it. No conversations ever took place. On my birthday, a few of my friends who worked there got me cake. I hugged them and expressed my gratitude. About an hour later, Mr. Bee Gees arrives with a birthday card, which he hands over to my manager for me to receive. The manager thought it was extremely funny that this weirdo got me a card, until I opened it. Happy birthday. I saw you hugging those guys earlier. I became extremely angry, but I sought the advice of a friend who helped me understand that it's okay to have friends apart from me. Just please don't hug them anymore. Save those hugs for me. I'm not sure what emotion was on my face, but my manager grabbed the card, read it, walked me back to the store manager's office, and showed it to him. The store manager said the guy was obviously joking, but that he would talk to him about it. I didn't see Mr. Bee Gees for around a week. One night, while I was closing, Mr. Bee Gees dropped a stuffed envelope on my counter and left without saying a word. Inside were 6 pages, front and back, of pure crazy. It essentially recounted his entire life story, including details about his family and the schools he attended, interspersed with oddities such as his sister's psychic abilities and his father's exorcist status. The end of the letter was about how his friend, who was 18 months old, was missing, and he knew she was being assaulted because he could hear her screaming his name in his dreams. I also brought this issue to the attention of the store manager, who instructed me to file a written complaint. He also advised me not to venture outside alone during my breaks and to avoid any areas where the guy might be present. 2 nights later, as I was wrapping up for the night, I noticed that the counter's configuration only allows for one opening, with the counters extending to both sides. He brought a handcart filled with boxes from my department, but accidentally pushed it into the only opening between the counters, trapping me inside. He simply stood there, staring at me, while I regarded him with what I'm sure was our collective terror. I was then, and still am now, riddled with anxiety. I don't like confrontation, and the last thing I wanted was for this weirdo to confront me about me reporting him. Twice. He whispers, "Sorry, I didn't mean to scare you." I turned around and started finishing my closing tasks, pretending he wasn't there, even though I could feel him watching me. After a few minutes, I simply glanced at him and questioned, "Were you not instructed to avoid my presence?" He gave me a predatory grin and said, "The store manager asked me if I was joking." I told him I was. Then with the counter between us, he leaned in as close to me as possible and whispered, "But I'm not joking." Then he walked away. For 2 weeks after that, he would randomly show up wherever I was. I would leave for lunch and he would be there. Even non-workplaces. I would go to the mall, he would be there. Another department manager informed me that 4 other people had reported him for very similar behavior over the previous 2 years. To preface, I'm a 31-year-old wife, mother, and Marine Corps veteran. I practice and help instruct Taekwondo and Krav Maga. Never in a million years did I expect something like this would happen to me, but last night it did, and I hope this is the right place to get this off my chest. Last night I went to Walmart to do some grocery shopping. On my way into the store, I noticed a shady-looking, beat-up gray sedan circling around the parking lot and not parking. I found it odd, but brushed it off and went into the store. After completing my shopping, I emerged from the store to find the same car still circling. The situation remained peculiar, yet it didn't prompt me to raise my vigilance. I unloaded my groceries in the car, took the cart back to the car corral, and when I entered my car, I got a really strong urge to immediately lock my doors even before I started my car. Almost immediately after I made the move, the same sedan suddenly accelerated, partially blocking my path and forcing me to use the reverse gear to escape. It was a middle-aged man, and his window was rolled down, and he was yelling at me. The fact that both of his hands were in his pockets made me nervous. I couldn't tell if he was weird and cold or had something in his pockets, so I kept looking at his hands, making it hard to back up. So I rolled my window down an inch and asked him what he needed. Stupid, I know. He said he needed help and that he couldn't hear me well, so could I open my door? When I asked him what he needed help with, he began yelling at me to simply open my door. At that moment, I shifted my car into reverse and briefly glanced at my backup camera. Meanwhile, he had exited his vehicle, approached my door, attempted to pull the handle, and continued to yell at me to open it. I left so quickly that I'm surprised the police didn't stop me. Finding a crowded, well-lit parking lot, I called the police, who thankfully took me seriously and went to investigate, only to find the man long gone. I know nothing happened, and perhaps I shouldn't still be so shaken up over it, but that encounter really shook me. I just wanted to share. I worked the graveyard shift for a long time. One night about 25 years ago, I caught up with my nightly work but was unable to back up the work I'd done. I decided to clock out and drive to Walmart to buy a box of new discs and leave the receipt for our bookkeeper so she could reimburse me. A few days after this incident, we learned that our computer had a virus that was corrupting the floppy disks we were using. So you get the picture. Most of us relied on floppy disks for backup, and we didn't have cell phones at the time. I arrived at Walmart around 3 a.m., went inside, and discovered the discs. I decided to visit the toy department as it was early November, and I wanted to get Christmas gift ideas for my son, as well as several nieces and nephews. While I browsed, I felt someone watching me. I glanced around and noticed 3 men standing nearby, all of them staring at me. I gazed back at them for a considerable amount of time, allowing their appearances to solidify in my mind, before continuing to peruse the toys. I was in no hurry, I was off the clock and wouldn't need much time to back up my work after I got back to the office, so I continued to look around, even strolled through housewares for a few minutes. Every time I glanced over my shoulder, those 3 guys were observing me closely. After the second encounter, alarms began to ring in my head. They were repellent looking, with pasty pale faces as if they spent all their time indoors, eating junk food, and their eyes were cold and hard. The way they dressed, which was much too warm for the weather that night, disturbed me the most. Even though it was November, it was about 55 degrees outside. I was perfectly comfortable in a jean jacket. These guys were in heavy coats suitable for sub-freezing temperatures, and they had them buttoned to their necks inside the store. The only explanation I could think of for this was that they were concealing weapons beneath their heavy coats. I finally headed toward the cash registers, thinking that if no one else was leaving the store when I did, I would ask the cashier to call security and request an escort to my vehicle. As I reached the register, I saw my stalkers standing just inside the doors. They muttered among themselves for a moment, then they exited the store. As I was paying, a man and woman lined up behind me. I had seen them shortly before I neared the register, and they didn't seem to be paying any attention to me. I moved to the area between the registers and the doors and stood waiting for the couple, fiddling with my buttons, blowing my nose. When they moved toward the doors, so did I, staying just a few steps ahead of them. I had parked a short distance outside and swiftly made my way to my vehicle. The car with the stalkers sat nose to nose with my pickup truck. I hopped in, locked the door, then sat back and stared at them. The couple I had used as my unwitting escorts walked past me and the stalkers and got into a car a few spaces away. They left. After a minute or two, the stalker driver said something to the others, started the engine, and pulled away. I watched as they slowly left the parking lot, then ascended the nearby interstate highway overpass and took the entrance ramp. Only then did I start my engine. I took my time looking around as the engine warmed. I continued along the street for a couple of miles past the interstate, then pulled into a dark lot behind a strip mall, turned off my lights and engine, and waited, watching the few vehicles that passed. I wanted to ensure that my office building, isolated and usually deserted at that hour, was not the destination for those guys. After my pulse slowed to normal, I restarted the truck and returned to work. I am female, but I'm almost 6 feet tall and weigh about 175 pounds. I know that my size has protected me from a lot of mayhem over the years. I was also armed that night. I carried a loaded Smith & Wesson revolver along with a speed loader, which is essentially an extra cylinder filled with bullets. Still, I probably would have been no match for 3 determined assailants. This experience cured me of my nonchalance about running errands in the wee hours and validated my conviction that anytime I get the feeling of someone's eyes crawling over me, it's wise to look around and find the reason. For a bit of context, I'm a 22-year-old female, 5'2", and about 125 pounds. My mother is 45 years old, standing at a height of only 5 feet, and she would be easily overwhelmed by the wind. Both of us appear significantly younger than our actual ages, and as a result, our diminutive stature has led to numerous encounters with strangers. Because of this, I usually carry a small arsenal with me at all times, including pepper spray, a taser, a pocket knife, and a small dagger inside my purse, demonstrating my confidence in my ability to handle situations. Don't judge. We live in a big city, and I'm a small girl. However, this particular night marked the worst experience we've had with creepers to date. My mother and I were grocery shopping at our usual Walmart. It was later in the day, around 7 p.m., a time we tried to avoid due to our frequent encounters with creepers. We just pulled into the parking lot and began our trek inside when I spotted 5 young men, older than myself but still young, standing outside the store, laughing and smoking near the front door. I pay it no mind when they glance at me and my mom, and we walk inside to the carts. The men occasionally peek inside, and while I shrug it off, I mentally note the expressions on their faces. I tend to be on the paranoid side. We head inside, moving straight for the grocery section, and as we shop, I keep noticing 2 or 3 of the 5 men are in each aisle we got to. Alarms begin to ring, but I ignore the paranoia and maintain a confident demeanor as we stroll. Most of the time, confidence deters the creepers. I make sure to go down a few random aisles just to test it, and sure enough, at least one of them is always there. Well, my mom starts to notice the more aisles we go down, and her hand squeezes mine in warning as she shoots one of the men a death glare when we stop in the cereal aisle. Despite the fact that I'm a grown woman, she still acts like a motherly figure. The guy, who has now moved about 2 feet away from our cart, simply glances over and smirks at her. He's tall and lanky, with short dark hair partly hidden under a ball cap and a pointed rat-like face. Mom narrows her eyes, unnerved by his response to her gaze, and gives me an uncertain glance. I shrug, giving him a quick glance before stepping around him to pick up a box from the shelf a short distance away. The hair on the back of my neck prickles suddenly, and as I turn around quickly, I jump when I see another one of the guys. This individual has blonde, shaggy, oily hair that hangs to his chin, and his hands are tucked into a gray reflective material Punisher hoodie. He's staring up at the boxes, but a smirk is on his face as he directly stands in my path. My stomach flips, and I grit my teeth as I snap, "Excuse me." I try to go around him, but he just moves in my path. The glare is shot at him now. He is not finding my antics funny, and Mom, seeming to notice, comes to my rescue by pushing the cart directly between us and asks me, "Are you ready?" I nod, and he interprets this as a cue to move, flashing a yellow smile and nodding to us. Mom only glares, grabbing my arm and hustling us to another aisle. We keep running into these guys, and once we're done shopping, I'm afraid they might try to follow us outside. Therefore, we start exploring the store, exploring different routes and aisles. After a while, we seem to lose them and relax, assuming they have given up. We head to the self-checkout line at our Walmart, specifically designed for grocery trips, and begin our self-checkout process. Halfway through unloading our items, I experience that unsettling sensation once more. As I turn around, I notice the same 5 guys standing in the lane next to us. My stomach drops, eyes moving to my mom's, who stares at them with wide eyes and a furrowed brow. Attempting to relax, we meticulously count the items. We reasoned that since the guys only had 10 items between them, and we had a full cart, they would need to move more quickly. Wrong. It appears that no one else chose to check out in our lanes, allowing them the freedom to proceed at their own pace. For the next 15 minutes, they told us they were just watching us as we rang up our groceries, and every now and then they were ringing things up. Mom grabs my arm and we exchange a glance. I shake my head, starting to get freaked out, as my mom starts to panic, grabs her phone and calls my dad. In her state of panic, however, she turns and wanders a few feet away. Not her best moment, she admits. and when I turn to ring up, the last wet ball cap guy is standing right there. We gaze at each other, his smile filled with filthy, stained, and messed up teeth. I only glare, dropping the chicken in the bag before reaching for the last item and ringing it up, still glaring at him in a stare down. Now that she's off the phone, Mom rushes back over to find the ball cap guy standing there, while the other four sit on the benches 3 feet away, watching us. Ball cap simply drops the empty Gatorade bottle he was holding into the trash can by the register, maintaining eye contact, before turning to join his friends. Keep in mind, they had a trash can right by their register as well, completely empty while ours was almost full. Unsure of what to do, Mom and I began to fiddle around, hoping they would become impatient and leave. Nope. As we pay and get our receipt, they are still there, so Mom grabs my arm and steers me toward customer service, telling me that my dad told us to have security walk us out. Once we arrived, the guys moved out, and I felt a sense of relief when they finally left. The ladies at customer service were amazing and very understanding, standing with us the entire time, while security, a big man with a calm and confident persona, came over, took their descriptions, and went to the front doors on both entrances to ensure they weren't still around. When he returned, he informed us that he had discovered 5 men who matched their descriptions hanging around the front of the building, out of sight unless you walked out the door and turned around. He said the minute he told them to leave, they took off, and he promised to walk us to our car and let the officer outside know what was going on. We thanked him and the ladies, and we thankfully made it to our car with no problems and haven't seen those men again. The creepy guys who stalked us at Walmart should never be seen again. When I was in college, I was out and about with my then boyfriend. We had gone to dinner and then went to Walmart to get some typical college food so we could survive a Sunday. I donned a casual yet elegant outfit. We decided to split up while we were shopping, possibly to speed up the process, but I can't recall the exact reason. I was strolling through the grocery aisles when I spotted a girl about my age. In a friendly manner, we casually smiled at each other and continued on shopping. At first, it didn't seem strange, but I kept noticing that she was in the same aisles as me, and a big muscular man was always nearby. Eventually, I texted my boyfriend to inquire about his whereabouts and proceeded with my shopping. The next thing I know, the girl approaches me and expresses how much she loves my jacket. I say, "Thanks, honey," and I try to move on. She stops me and says something along the lines of, "Hey, you look like you're my age and seem really nice. I recently relocated here to start a new job and company with my friends." And she attempted to elicit information about my past. I was vague and untrusting in my responses, recognizing that this wasn't normal. Then she said, "We are seeking more individuals like you and myself to join our team. It's a warehouse job, and I would love to have you as one of our bookkeepers. You should give me your number." I said, "That is so nice of you to offer me a job, but I am not a desk person and already have a job I love." She responded, "That's unfortunate. I had hoped we could collaborate effectively. Could you please provide me with your phone number so we can arrange a meeting? I would love to have a friend who can show me around the city." I realized that I wasn't getting out of this situation until my boyfriend showed up, or I gave her my number. Eventually, I rattled off a fake phone number and said, "Hey, I'll catch you later. I gotta go." Then as I walked away, I prayed that my boyfriend would be nearby so we could leave without further incident. While I was looking for him and trying to call him, the girl caught up to me and said, "I tried to call you, but it said the number was out of service." And as I tried to come up with a quick excuse and say, "Maybe you typed it in wrong," she saw that my iPhone was unlocked and in my hand. She quickly grabbed my phone and called herself on it. I was so furious and upset with her that I grabbed my phone back just as my boyfriend turned the corner. He instantly recognized that something was up and said we needed to go. When the girl saw him approach me, she looked disappointed and stopped trying to interact. We ended up leaving without making any purchases. That night we called our parents and the police. The police stated they didn't suspect any malice, but I was certain it was likely trafficking. I was tempted to change my phone number due to my overwhelming fear. I blocked them and turned off all location access on my phone. I was too scared to go anywhere alone for a while, so I even told my coach about it. A few days later, I received a text from an unknown number. It was the girl. She sent a picture of my best friend who was out drinking downtown with some of her other friends. The text read, "I met your best friend. She gave me your number because I told her I was looking for new friends. She showed me a picture of you, and I said, 'What a coincidence.' I met her the other day, but I lost her number when I received a new phone. About 2 minutes later, I got a text from my best friend that said, "I gave your number to a girl who wants to make friends around here and is looking for people to join her business. Since I moved this week, I've been thinking of you." I freaked out. She was with her, and I told her to get away and not leave alone with her. I remained worried until my best friend arrived home. She said she was fine, otherwise I would have gone to pick her up. The next day, my best friend apologized and told me to block the number. My friend and her group tried to ditch her, but she kept showing up at the bars they were at. She said the girl was relentless and texted her all night trying to get my friend to go hang out at her place. My best friend also reported that when she inquired about the business, the girl provided limited details, only stating that it was a warehouse in town, would pay well, and I would provide it to her if she desired one. We never heard from this girl again. Today, I listened to a podcast that discussed various tactics used in sex trafficking. 2 examples of these tactics were vague jobs, which paid well but required you to meet them for further information, and a new-to-town girl who desperately needs new friends. I've been thinking about this all morning, and I'm glad I felt uncomfortable, and my friend didn't go with this girl. However, my main frustration stems from the police ignoring my concerns and dismissing them as insignificant. I hope they wrote down the tip that night, but doubt they did. I'm a 25-year-old woman. This happened about 2 years ago, during the summer. I had an early flight to catch, and I needed to buy some cheap travel-sized necessities before I drove myself to the airport. So at around 4 a.m., I drove to Walmart and parked as close as I could to the entrance. As soon as I parked, I looked to my left and noticed someone smoking out of a clear glass pipe. I thought to myself, this is what you get for being at Walmart at this hour. Anyway, I got out of my car and noticed 2 cars in another row of parking spots. The cars were facing each other and 3 guys were loitering nearby, engaging in conversation. I just figured they were typical parking lot junkies. I didn't think much of it until they stopped their conversation and stared in my direction. I swiftly entered the store, gathered my belongings, and made my way out. Now there were 5 men standing by the cars, and they all stopped what they were doing and stared at me as I unloaded my groceries in the trunk and got in my car. As soon as I started my vehicle, I looked in my side view mirror and saw that they had gotten in their cars and had started them. This immediately filled me with a sense of nausea. I pulled out of the parking lot, and sure enough, the 2 cars followed. The roads were quiet, and it was obvious that they were tailing me. I merged onto the freeway, and they followed. I got into the far left lane just to validate my thoughts, and sure enough, they were right behind me. The freeway was pretty much empty, and my exit was coming up. I live in a downtown area, and my exit has 2 options. I chose the option that went to the busiest part of the town, not my exit. These dudes wouldn't let up. When I reached the stoplight to turn into downtown off the freeway, I noticed that the cars were packed with people, all of whom appeared to be men. The sight of the packed cars filled me with fear. I frantically searched for my city's non-emergency number on the internet using my phone. As I'm calling, I make so many random-ass turns, and they follow me each time. Finally, I managed to contact someone who informs me that they are dispatching a police officer to my location. I can't stop my car, so I just keep driving in circles with these psychos behind me. It looked like there were 8 guys total between the 2 vehicles. The cop never finds me, so I say, fuck it, and I drive straight to the police station. The cars followed me until I got there, and they took a hard turn to avoid the station, once they realized where I was leading them. I was frustrated by the police's lack of action, yet I was relieved that I immediately noticed and chose not to drive home.